All right. It is time to talk about the future of Broadway.
Which we can't do unless we talk about what's contemporarily going on in Seoul, Korea, and London.
Okay.
And we were able to read an article by a young woman named Sammy Knold, who's an American director and was in Seoul, Korea, directing to Cameron McIntosh and what's his name?
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Thank you, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber. Two of his plays for the Korean audience. And this was in the stage originally. They've controlled, I'm just going to read very quickly what it says. Korea theater has been fundamentally redefined, not as a mass gathering, but as a controlled event and one that is critical to national morale and countless livelihoods. Yay, that's exactly true. Their attitude was that the theaters are uniquely controllable spaces where you can predict the flow of traffic, easily track and trace due to assigned seating, and control air filtration and follow hygienic best practices. Those were the rationale.
So what they would do, people would have to fill in forms. Needless to say, people would have to wear masks. People were sprayed with disinfectant. The theaters were disinfected. I think in some cases the actors were quarantined in their own bubble, not unlike what we've been doing with athletes, and it worked there.
Was there a plastic shield in front of the stage by any chance?
I don't.
That would be something.
I did not see anything about that. I think the front rows were removed in some cases, but aside from that, there was no social distancing in the theaters.
Right.
Now the question is, will that work here? And I guess the answer is it depends. The one thing that you have to understand is that in general, South Korea was much more prepared for the pandemic because they had one in 2015, and the compliance and the government has been much more straightforward. The government has been leading. You haven't had anyone in government officials poo-pooing masks, and for the most part, you have a population that is willing to accept the restrictions that are needed. You unfortunately do not have that here. There is also
people who are wearing masks a lot, regardless of this particular pandemic, has a throwback to the other pandemic. So
the other problem is there is now a new strain of COVID developing. It's in England. It's been discovered here, which is much more contagious. So what worked then may not work now. So I am also, unfortunately, only lukewarm to this proposal.
Well, Korea also has a difference because unlike England and America, or New York for Broadway, we have people coming from all over the world to see our theater. People don't go to South Korea to see theater. South Koreans go to see theater. So you never know who's going to be, who's carrying what, who's not symptomatic. All of those things make it different here. Also, I don't know that our air filtration systems and our hygiene is up to the standards that they're talking about.
They can certainly, I think it mostly has to do with HEPA filters, and those can be put in relatively easily.
The audience population is different. And I would highly recommend, if we were going to do anything about opening, that we did have every other seat, that we don't have people sitting shoulder to shoulder. And I would recommend a shield of some sort, a plastic shield around the stage, because the spittle that comes out of actors' mouths when they work, and I'm a former actress, and believe me, it happened with me too. It's just a question of, everything going on.
Right.
And it's not a question of clearing the couple of front rows, because this stuff is transmitted virally through the air, so it can go as far back.
Well, again, but there is a distance, and if it's ventilated, again, that was happening in Korea, and they did seem to keep it under control. I think what will happen is it's all really going to depend on how effective the vaccine is and how fast we can distribute it. Once we have achieved,
and how compliant the people are, and God knows people are not compliant.
Well, that too, but to get into the theater, they will have to be compliant. I think once we have a herd immunity, once we have the situation under control, I think we will see the theater making a major and quick comeback. People are chomping at the bit. People want to get out. That's why so many people are discarding the rules we have. So then when it becomes legal again, people are going to come out, and I think it's going to happen a lot faster than people realize.
Okay, well, here are a couple of things. Number one, you cannot keep the prices the way they are. People are now poor. Across the board, people have lost money in every way you can possibly think of. So people cannot afford $175 for a ticket to go to the theater. It's going to have to be brought back to a reasonable amount of money where there are seats that people can afford. Because you're not going to find, and maybe you'll find tourists coming in to do that, but you're not going to find New Yorkers coming in to do that. You're not going to find people from Atlanta coming up to see theater
Well,
at that rate.
but if you look at the statistics, the people who are in the financial class to see theater, they have been holding on to their jobs at a greater level. Plus, the stock market has been going up, up, up.
Oh,
So
so now, excuse me, Charlie. So now that means that what you're saying is that theater will now definitely become the playground of the rich only. That's awful. That's a dreadful thing.
again, I'm not saying I like the idea. Listen, I'd rather have it turn out to be your way where more people can go to the theater. But I am pointing out that people who now can afford the theater are probably still able to afford it. I'm not happy about this, Leslie. I don't like it. But
well,
this is how I am calling it as I see it.
I'm in violent disagreement with you.
You know what? I hope you're right. I would love to be wrong on this.
By the way, England opened its theaters for 5 minutes, and there were shows going on, and there was an impassioned speech from the stage on the first night of Girl from the North Country, where they opened and played one night and were made to close, and the leading actor stood up and said, this is outrageous, and what are you going to do about it? And the government, I don't know. Nobody stood up on our stages because they was closed the next day. They were open on the 11th, they were closed on the 12th. That was it. Nobody had a chance to make an impassioned speech. This is what we used to have in the New York Times. You see how big it is? You see how many plays there are listed? This was the Broadway, small off-Broadway list, but mostly the Broadway list. We may never see that again. I pray that we do. I may never live to see it. You might, Charlie. I don't know.
Leslie, we're going to see it again. And I think we are going to see it a lot sooner than people realize.